Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. The Super Bowl here this weekend, Super Bowl 57. I'm joined as always by Kiev O'Neill from theoddsbreakers.com. First, Kiev, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Beautiful weather down here in Phoenix. We had a really cold January, but it's warming up. Everybody's down here, man. You got the Phoenix Open going on, people taking off work left and right. Traffic's freaking crazy right now. Then we have the Super Bowl, of course, and the Super Bowl experience is like basically my background of the last one we had, but it's all downtown Phoenix, bunch of fun stuff to do. Pretty fun place to take your family. There's a bunch of little games you can play, and they do a pretty good job of that. I'll probably be heading out there either Friday or Saturday with my family. Obviously, just so much going on and so many delicious prop bets to talk about.
Yeah, lots going on. Busy time in Phoenix, and if you're a football fan, you ought to enjoy this weekend because it's the last, major football that we'll see for a little while. I'm not really counting the XFL. I know some people are starting to talk about that, but maybe I'll watch it a little bit. But we know it's nothing like college or the NFL. Ron Ace Sports on Twitter is joining us here today. Excited to have him here with us. Ron, how are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Really shouldn't talk about the weather too much because I'm out in California and near the Los Angeles area, and it's a beautiful day. It's a good day to be outdoors. Plan to be outdoors a little bit after this particular show. And you're right, one game left to talk about. We're gonna talk. We've talked about it for 2 weeks, but it deserves it because after that we go kind of silent on that. We all do our own things, or you go on to other sports. And sometime 2 or 3 months down the road, I'm going to say I miss football.
Oh, it's definitely coming. I guess I know something that Ron, you'll be following a lot. Kiev and I will as well. As the NFL draft will come up here in a couple months. We'll have to try to do a show or something for that as well because that's always fun and there can be some good value on that. But first things first, Super Bowl 57. It's the Chiefs versus the Eagles. Looking at the live line here for this one, -1.5 is the prevailing number here on the Eagles. I do see a couple minus ones showing up here in the last few minutes. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues to kind of edge down or not. It wouldn't shock me. I don't think there'll be a big line move. You're staying in that kind of dead-ish zone where the line usually is not going to fall, or the final score will usually not fall there. But you never know. We've got Eagles -1.5, a total of 51, the most common number here. Let's first talk about what our thoughts about the game in general are. We'll go in depth on props after that, and let's just take a look first at Chiefs Eagles. What do you think the keys to the game are on each side? Ron, I'm going to let you start us off here. What are your overview, your thoughts about this one?
Well, it's really a chess match game to me because we talk a lot about, rightfully so, the Philadelphia pass rush because it had 70 regular season sacks and 78 overall. But I feel Kansas City's pass rush is getting overlooked a little bit because this team, defensively, offensively too, is built for speed. And my first key to this game is, has Philadelphia seen Kansas City's speed with Nick Bolton, with some of the pass rush moves that Clark makes and so on? It's really going to be interesting whether Hurts is pressured a little bit more than usual because, let's face it, some of the competition he's faced during the year hasn't been up to the Kansas City Chiefs standards. Now, conversely, Kansas City hasn't seen a running attack like Hurts provides, like Sanders provides. Gainwell is a very strong yards per carry guy. So Kansas City, who has kind of a middle of the road run defense, they're going to be hit from many angles. Jalen Hurts on design runs. Sanders, they've been keeping him fresh all year, and I really look at yards per carry, and that's very important to me. So you have chess matches on both sides. And then the unknown factor really is, what's the health of the wide receivers of Kansas City? Because that's important to me too. We lose Hardman for this game, which disappoints me because I thought he could have been a key factor for this game. So now we're going to have to make use of Tony, who's not 100% healthy. Justin Watson might see some snaps. And then to go against the pass rush, we may see two tight end sets for Kansas City. So without all his full arsenal of weapons, what happens to Kansas City offensively. We know they've changed the way they play without Tyreek Hill. So that's another area. Who's going to get open? How far downfield are they going to get open? What Smith-Schuster's going to do? Is Philly going to double team Kelce? Because not everybody has double team Kelce in the playoffs, which surprises me. Those are my keys.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all great points. Kansas City is the more banged up team coming into this game, but Kansas City's played the much tougher schedule. I think there are a lot of moving parts in this, and to be fair, you guys know that I'm both of you know that this is the way I am in general. I really don't have a play that I love on a side or a total in this game. I think it would be easy to get on here and be like, bang the table and say, here's what I love. But I have to be honest, I think this is a difficult game. I really do. So I like the props better than I like the overall side and total in this one. But for me, a couple of the keys, this Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, I think you could argue it's the best offensive line in the NFL. They're especially good in run blocking. The Eagles have played from ahead all throughout the year. So I guess my question is, will they be able to play from ahead in this game? If they get behind, can they throw their way back into the game? I think that's the question about them. On the other side, the Chiefs, their offensive line is good, especially in the interior, not quite as good on the outside. That Eagles pass rush is just insane. And I think Sirianni has exceeded all expectations anybody could have possibly had for him. Like, nobody wanted him except for the Eagles. And even at the time, people really questioned the hire. So he's done a great job. Obviously, Andy Reid is fantastic. What can you say negative about Andy Reid? And he had 2 weeks to prep for this. We know how he's done with extra time in the past. I think this is a good coaching matchup with Hurts and Mahomes, a really fun quarterback matchup as well. For me, the side, I'll lean the Eagles in this game. I don't like anything strongly there. Like I said, I'm going to lean to the Eagles, thinking that they have so many different ways to move the ball on offense. I don't think the Bengals played very well on offense against the Chiefs last week, a couple of weeks ago now. I'd like to forget that game, to be honest, but I don't think the Bengals played very well on offense in that game. And obviously the Bengals offensive line was their Achilles heel with all those injuries. That's not going to be the case for the Eagles. I think the Eagles can move the ball here in this one. Mahomes is fantastic. You can't say anything negative about him. 51 being the total at this point, I think is probably about right. But I want to get Kiev's thoughts here on this one. Kiev, with the side or the total, do you have any kind of thoughts on this one as we break it down?
Well, they do call the Super Bowl in many cases the most efficient game with the efficient market of the NFL. But, I've had Super Bowl plays in the past, so I do disagree with it. And, it just depends upon how you want to approach it. I do like the Eagles to win. I see a complete team. They start ahead, and I do agree with your point that it's not often where we've seen them come from behind. And you worry a little bit about that. As a matter of fact, the whole narrative on the Eagles in 2021-22 season was you live bet them when they're beating someone because they just pound the ball to death, but you fade them if they're starting to lose because they haven't been playing catch up. Well, a couple things changed since then. Dallas Goedert is healthy, and A.J. Brown is there. And he's been the best friend bailout to stretch out the defenses. So, I wonder how that's going to work out. I see an Eagles team that the best pass rush, but great points. I mean, Christian Jones and Clark. The Kansas City Chiefs are actually number one, I believe, in sacks, and I think they are number two in sacks behind the Eagles. Number 70 sacks for the Eagles, like you said. They're 55. Pressure rate, they're top 5. You got the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Jets. You got the Jaguars and the Chiefs. And I think that's key. I see a team that is got a better defense with the Eagles. You give that edge in general to them, especially in the front. I mean, it's so funny to see Ndamukong Suh there being like a third guy rotating in behind Cox. You're like, are you serious? They had that number 1 draft pick from Georgia and at number 2, so it's just their defensive line is spectacular. Now, is it enough to get to Mahomes? I don't know. I would assume so. I think the offensive line is a lot better with the Eagles. Now, you did see Christian Jones be a wrecking ball last week against the Bengals. That was a big issue. I also think that the Bengals were outcoached. I think they played double wide in a couple of those at the end, taking out Jamar Chase and hit T. Higgins as much as you can. And Hayden Hurst was running open in some of those plays. Unfortunately, slot receiver Boyd went out and you couldn't get the ball to Irvin because they had no camaraderie. Well, that's what I think is going to happen. And the Eagles, the best way to beat some of that defense is the read option and what they run, and the RPOs as well. They do run that, and that also helps break up some of the blitzes. So that's why they are so successful on offense. They're just very powerful. They're allowed to scheme around some of the strengths, and Hurts' legs is really important. I do think that Hurts' shoulder is a little bit hurt. It didn't seem correct to me. Maybe there's going to be a prop we discuss about that a little bit later. But when it comes to complete team, I got the Eagles. When it comes to quarterback and coach, I got to lean the Chiefs on that. To be honest with you, I don't believe that the Chiefs are completely healthy. I think they are still a little bit banged up, and that's why I like the Eagles. Otherwise, my spread on this game would be literally like 0.5, but I just see Hardman out. I see Tony is going to play. They're all going to play, but they're really banged up. I'm a little bit worried about Willie Gay. He had a really rough route in the last game. The Eagles might have had a very easy path, but you also can't forget that the Chiefs, that Jacksonville fumble really would have put Jacksonville back in the game, and the Jacksonville did score another touchdown. That was a lot closer than it looked from that fumble. And obviously what we saw last week was a little bit of a debacle that got talked about with the Bengals and how that game finished out. So in my opinion, I think the Eagles are the better team, but as it come to go down to the quarterback, I'm really going to be probably favoring Mahomes a little bit. And I hope is that the Eagles stay ahead if I'm going to win a small play on them.
Yeah, I would agree with those thoughts. I think that's a fair assessment there. Ron, do you have any kind of lean on the side in this game?
So I use metrics that are different in the playoffs than the Super Bowl, or the Super Bowl than the regular season, and it doesn't come up with, it's like once every 5 years I come up with a decent Super Bowl play, and those have been really solid based on some stuff that's worked for a long time. You mentioned Sirianni, for example. Would he adjust if they got behind? And it's interesting because I didn't know a thing about Sirianni when he first became a coach, and I've studied this game for decades. And after their bye week last year, he completely started to understand what this team is about, and they became run-centric. They went from 38 passes a game to 21 passes a game in 2021. Then they got better, like Kiev said. They added some really good weapons in terms of Brown and so on, and they trusted their passing game more, but they're still running. I have a feeling that if they got behind, they wouldn't totally deviate from their offense, but we'll see. And I'm glad you brought up Ndamukong Suh too, because that run defense just gets so much better with him in the lineup. You saw what happened with Tampa when he was not on the team anymore. They were a top 3 run defense, and last year they were 15, 16, 17. Not horrible, but Suh makes a difference. And if he bottles up the Kansas City run game, and it gets harder to complete third downs because you're in obvious passing situations, my metrics would slightly favor Philadelphia, but I thought I was going to like Kansas City if they were at full strength, even with that, with all their wide receiver options. But unless I get some beat writers report and so on, I'm pretty much on the sidelines unless for some strange reason Kansas City goes to +3. And I really don't see that happening. I think the recreational money will be on Mahomes, and I think the line will pretty much close around 1.
I think that's a good assessment. I would guess 1 would be my guess as to where it finishes as well. Guys, if you're ready, let's go ahead and start talking about props. Let's first talk about, I know Kiev, you wanted to discuss kind of a process, not just, we could sit here and give you 20 props, but it's pretty dangerous to be betting props without a real strategy going into it. So Kiev, I'll let you start us off here. How do you like to try to think about betting these props in the Super Bowl?
Well, let's face it. You can't you can't like be so diversified you just get juiced out of everything, right? You have to have some sort of a I guess a following in the game of what you think that's going to happen, and I guess you can lean Eagles, but make sure you look at your portfolio of props, that you have some fail safes where they both can hit. Maybe you like the Eagles rushing, but you also like the receiving on the other side or something to that sort. I like what the market's telling me a little bit, that you do have a close game, but I also kind of like it personally because I think this is going to be a rushing and tight end heavy game. I mean, if you look at the props, kind of tell you that. If you look at the receiving props of especially the guys with the Kansas City Chiefs, are very low. The receiving yards are low. I think the books kind of see that Pacheco has been such a big factor. Pacheco it blew my mind how good this guy could be from Rutgers. I was shocked. And, so that's kind of telling me it's going to be a very Kelsey, a very running back, heavy on one side. But I also see that with the Eagles too, especially if Hurts' arm's a little bit banged up. When I saw them double cover Chase and Higgins, I think that Spags is going to have the same type of thing going. It's like, okay, we're going to have to stop Hurts running the ball and they're rushing, maybe leaving the middle of the field open like they did against the Bengals. A lot of times when teams who were successful the week before, they just rinse and repeat. So I'm in general low, at least of receptions wise, on receiving, which actually makes me lean a little bit more towards the under. My perfect number was 51.2. And this is just using the algorithm from the whole year. It spit out 51.2. I guess I should have bet the over when it opened, but I didn't. But just by this wing, the way the Super Bowl is, the way the game plays out, I expect low scoring in the first, and I expect high scoring in the second part. I approached it where I could have the Chiefs win this game and still win my props. I could have the Eagles win this game and still win my props. If there's a ton of yards and it's receiving yards, I might be a little bit down on my props. But if it's more run centric and tight end centric, I think I'm going to have a great day. So that's the way I approach it, Kyle.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Some people get so concentrated; they're so sure of themselves that they fire on 15 or 20 props that are so correlated that, if that team loses, if somebody gets hurt, you're going to lose just about everything. I think that's super dangerous, and I think that's the large point that Kiev is pointing out too here. You got to be careful, diversify yourself. You don't want to not think about the handicap of the full game, but you don't want to only consider that as well. So, Ron, do you have anything to add to that as far as your strategy for prop betting?
Yeah, I think there's some interesting points regarding strategy because I play props more than a lot of people during the year. So I don't come in, naive about all this. I kind of know where numbers should be set. But I will say this, my strategy in the Super Bowl has changed over time as more markets get into the United States, like the DraftKings and the FanDuels and so on. These markets that used to be so soft at openers is not as soft anymore. And you see more sophisticated bettors, moving the line a little faster. I used to have it where it was kind of like a 40-20-40. 40% of my props were within the first 48 hours, 20% as they introduce new props and head-to-head props and cross sport, and 40% the last 24 hours when books have liability. Now I did see some soft openers in a lot of places, but it's not as many. I would say I probably was 25% of my props were made in the first 48 hours because I think they got moved into a certain area where you lost some of the value. Now, it used to be you could get even a catch or two different. My strategy is to have fun with this too, especially if you haven't done this and you're listening to us. Have fun with this. Go for some middles. Grab some free money when you can. Just enjoy the whole thing. And that way, if you're doing something like that, you're not top heavy in one particular area. The other last point I would make is, and it's not always the case, but when you have Mahomes, when you have some of these other people, if you like overs on certain people, if you really think Mahomes is going to be having a good day, you generally want to take that early because overs tend to get bet up. People like to root for outcomes as opposed to against outcomes. The underbettors more like me, kind of wait till the end to see when the line crosses a little bit too high or the juice goes a little bit too high so I can grab some value on the other end.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you like the under, you wait till later. If you like the over, you want to go ahead and bet that early. The only thing I would add to this is definitely shop around because there's so many different, if you're taking receiving yards, if you get 3 or 4 yards difference, too many people are like, well, it's 3 yards. So many of these are decided by a small margin at the end. You don't want to lose that way. It's a really tough way to lose because you could have done better. So, guys, let's go ahead and get into some prop bets that we like here. Ron, did you have any specific quarterback props that you like in this one? Let's start with the quarterbacks and running backs, then we can kind of spread out from there.
Perfect. So with quarterbacks, I looked at Mahomes and I said, okay, he's going to throw the ball. He's estimated to throw the ball about 38 to 39 times. He's going to face a pass rush that's number one in the NFL. If the running game is stopped because of Ndamukong Suh and so on, he's going to face longer distances. He's probably going to have to force some throws. So one of my props was Mahomes to throw an interception. Now, amazingly, I didn't get the best price on this. I saw it and I said, okay, I've seen 110 and I've seen 120. I'm going to grab the 110. And then 2 days later it was minus 105 somewhere. But it's going to be in that range now of the 110 to 120, 125. It's really close in that area. But I do think out of 38 or 40 throws, he's going to have to force some throws. So on that side, that's where I went. And I think there'll be design runs for Jalen Hurts. I took an early position on over 9.5 carries, which there was 9.5 and 10.5 at plus money, but the 10.5, there's no more 9.5s, but even at 10.5, I think if Philly wins the time of possession, Hurts is going to be a part of the game. And if they're coming from behind, he's going to have to scramble and run as well. So those were my two quarterback positions. I have more, but those are the two.
Yeah, I bet one of those as well. I have Mahomes to throw an interception here in this game too. The steam has kind of come in on his attempts over to where I've seen 39.5 as far as passing attempts. For as amazing as Mahomes is, and he is the best, no doubt about that, he does take some chances. We'll see him falling down, throwing the ball. It works far more than you think it should work. But it does put some risk there. And he's going to be under a lot more pressure than he usually is. So I do like that one. That's one of my plays as well. Kiev, do you have anything as far as quarterback props?
I played both of the quarterbacks throwing interception small. And
Nice.
I agree. That's just a lot of pressure. Obviously, if the Eagles are behind, you're getting plus 120, plus 125 with Hurts to do that same thing. So I don't mind it. If I hit one, I'm almost even. If I hit them both, there you go. So I agree with that one. Mahomes, I won this before and it paid me 30 to 1 and actually made my day because back in 2019, I probably overbet it. But I bet him to score the first touchdown. Now, obviously the narrative and why this price came out so high was because of his ankle injury, but you saw him run for the first down last time. And obviously the personal foul christened it, but he's going to run. And if he sees an angle to the Super Bowl, he's going to run for it. I mean, he's 28 to 1, 30 to 1 in some books to score the first touchdown. So what I did is I'm sacrificing 1 unit on a bunch of players to score a touchdown and 0.2 units on every single one. So basically, I like Kelsey at plus 700. I like Sanders at plus 650. Pacheco at plus 850. Gainwell at plus 2,500, 2,500. I mean. And Mahomes at 2,800. Actually got it at 3,000, basically 3,000. So if one of those hits, then I win. Of course, if it's Miles Sanders, I win a little bit, But I'm trying to look at the situations where the only thing that could kill me is if Jalen Hurts does do it, and he might do it. It's Jalen Hurts, and it's one of the big receivers like an A.J. Brown, which I am not receiver high on this game, the way that the Eagles play and the way that Pacheco is just blown out. So I guess that would be my first one. And it's a long shot, but I put them together. And like Ron says, I also have a little fun with it.
Yeah, you have to have a little bit of fun with these too. I mean, it makes the Super Bowl viewing that much more enjoyable. And I'll have to try to find an entertainment prop. I don't know if you guys have taken any of those yet, just for a little bit of fun money, so that my wife has something to root for while we're
Yeah.
watching this one as well.
Yeah, and
But
those are the props that are predetermined. And I did get the
sure.
set list last year and was able to jump on it and before it started moving. So that was a fun one. Hopefully, I get that set list again. If you're out there, guy, send me a text. But that was fun. And anything predetermined, I usually stay away from. I used to think I had an edge on the Gatorade, and I used to try to find out what these teams were drinking and stuff. But then when it came out blue when the Rams won, I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" Um, so it's funny if you think you have an edge on it, fine. I think the other it's more negative EV stuff because the books are placing the price on it to make money in general. But we'll find one for you, Kyle.
Sure. Yeah. These are lunch money bets for me. This is
Yeah.
not anything serious, just for fun. But so, guys, what do you think? Anything else you like as far as running backs? Obviously, the Eagles have so many different guys that could run. It makes them kind of a unique team. The Chiefs will probably be very pass heavy in general, even without some of the wide receivers. So they're a little bit different. I'll start with you, Kiev. Do you have anything as far as the running backs in
Absolutely.
particular?
I love Pacheco over his rushing and receiving total, and it moved up. And to be honest with you, I'm looking now at these odds. A lot of them have moved in my favor. Now it's up to 68.5 rushing, receiving minus 115. He was used a heck of a lot last game, and it blew my mind. He gets used a lot in the receiving game and in the rushing game. And if the Eagles do have a weakness, and I don't even know if it's a weakness, but they play a little bit softer on the run when it comes to the minus territory, and until they get into the red zone at least. And it shows on the rush EPA. Both teams really are allow chunks of rushing yards until they tighten up towards the red zone. So I think Pacheco will get those rushing yards. I think the run's going to keep that swarming Eagles defense off of Mahomes. I think Andy Reid knows that. Look at what the Eagles did to the Niners quarterbacks last game. So I like Pacheco in the total. Now, I also kind of like his receiving number, but I didn't take it because I got the rushing and receiving. His number went from 12.5 to 16.5. So I'm a big fan of Pacheco over his numbers. And I also like Kenneth Gainwell, who's used a heck of a lot more than people think over his receiving total. His receiving yards right now, 11.5. I think that's way too low.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have any of those, but those are all interesting plays that I'm going to be looking into as well. Ron, you have anything as far as running backs here?
Well, I'm going to cover the same two running backs. Pacheco's an interesting story because until that last game, he wasn't that used in the passing game. They wanted to use McKinnon a little more, but McKinnon has kind of disappeared lately in the passing game. And now you run the rookie in there, and he's got some fresh legs. He's really showing some stuff. My question, and it's still something I haven't answered yet, who's the better blocker? Is it McKinnon? Is it even Clyde Edwards-Helaire who might even see some action? Is it Pacheco, the rookie? Because I think they're going to have to devote a little bit more time and effort to stopping the pass rush of Philadelphia. So I bet Pacheco actually under for number of carries, which opened 12.5 and is now sitting at 11.5, just because what if Mahomes is pass centric? What if Philadelphia is controlling time of possession, that kind of thing. And what if he gets off to a slow start and they want to go with a more veteran lineup? Or what if they want to close out the game with a more veteran lineup with McKinnon if he's not fumble prone? So that was kind of my slant there. But I'm with you on Gainwell, although I took him with rushing yards. And the reason I took him with rushing yards, which is sitting around 18.5 and 19.5, is because even with his time at Memphis, and I've studied him for years, yards per carry, a very important running back stat in my book. He's always been there. In fact, he had something like 100 yards in that first game against the New York Giants. Obviously, the score got out of hand, and it's a little different. But because Sanders is not overused, I think Gainwell will get his carries, which is sitting at 4.5. And if he sits at 4.5, 5 carries, I think he can get 4 yards a carry, 20 yards. And I have him projected for 27 yards. So those were the running back moves that I liked.
All right, so let's move on. And I wanted to mention too, viewers, if you have anything you like as far as props, you can drop those in the chat. If you have any questions, you can ask us those as well. So I see several people here watching live. We appreciate that, certainly. So let's move on to wide receivers, the tight ends, wide receivers, pass catchers here in general. Ron, I did look that up as you were talking too. Looks like McKinnon and Pacheco, PFF is not high on either one of them as far as their pass protection. Edwards-Helaire has some good numbers pass blocking in his career, but how much is he going to play? I think that'll be interesting to see as we go.
I think it's very interesting, and it throws me for a little bit of a curve. I have a theory that he's lost favor personally.
Yes,
and so I think that was just a move in case they get injured, because Hardman had to go on IR, so you bring him up. Right. So that's my theory. I'm hoping for that for my over.
Yeah, he's definitely dropped out of favor. It's hard to believe if you would have put those three guys and you thought Edwards-Helaire would be the one out of favor, a year or two ago, people would have thought you were pretty crazy. Do you guys have anything you like as far as tight ends, receivers, anything like that? I don't have a player specific one here. I have some other random ones that I'll give here later. But Ron, do you have anything here in this area?
Yeah. So I'm piggybacking a little bit off what Kiev was talking about, where there's chances to fade wide receivers in different areas. If you believe that these defenses are pretty good against the pass, or at least they're going to get in your face and force the quarterbacks to throw a little bit quicker, that first reception under or the long reception under, especially if you get at a place where if they don't even catch a pass, like if Quez Watkins doesn't catch a pass, but he plays and he does, then you win in terms of long reception or first reception and so on. So I kind of dabbled in that market, taking some of these lesser known receivers and playing them under for various reasons. And I do want to mention one other person in this particular case, and that's Noah Gray, the tight end for Kansas City. He had a 64% snap count in his last game. And I do believe, even though it's going to be more for blocking purposes, that he's going to have a similar snap count with all the wide receiver uncertainty and maybe Tony on a pitch count and stuff like that. I think Noah Gray gets his targets, or at least he gets his snaps. And we know that Mahomes can make a play out of nothing. All of a sudden, everything breaks down and he throws sidearm, or he sees somebody out of the corner of his eye. It could be Noah Gray who's trying to block and then he releases. So you could either play the total started at 10.5. It's about 12.5 for his yardage, 1.5 receptions, which is plus money in a lot of places. It's roughly around even odds. I just have this feeling that Noah Gray is going to be on the field enough to get some targets.
All right, Kiev, anything here in the receiver area?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm waiting on receivers because as I told you, my narrative is that it's not going to be a receiver centric game because they're going to give up the larger rushes until they tightened up. They just don't want to give up the big play just from the way they played defense recently. Then the Eagles are like the number one team, I believe, against the pass. Part of it is because of pass rush. Maybe Gray gets some short outs, which could happen. But I'm going to wait and bet a lot of my receivers under at the end. Now, I will say it's not like a guarantee that these that the public pushes these numbers up, because last couple of years I've waited on receivers and other stuff, and it actually might have slanted down on Sunday when the sharper and the bigger money came in. I think everybody waits. I think the time I'm going to fire on it's going to be Saturday night when everybody's out partying. I'm going to be out in front of my computer screen hitting my receivers under. So I'm going to probably try to catch the Saturday bettors and get it under before that. I don't know what's going to happen completely, but I think that Kansas City's receivers are set low enough. I did take Justin Watson under 1.5 receptions. Tony's going to play. He's going to be banged up. I know Hardman's not in, but it's going to be a lot of Kels. I'm not taking Kels under, that's for sure. And it's going to be, you saw Valdez Scantling have such a great game last week. for the Chiefs. So I think guys like Juju Smith-Schuster are going to play. Sky Moore. I didn't even see a prop on Sky Moore, Ron. I don't know why, but is he hurt? Why is there no props on Sky Moore? Maybe it's just the wild card the books are really dreading or something. So I think McKinnon's going to get a few targets. Pacheco. And so I just thought a good under for him. And I took Dallas Goedert over 44.5. It's at 47.5 yards now. So I'm in the right side of the line move. I don't know why he'd be any different than AJ Brown personally. I think Dallas Goedert could even outgain AJ Brown in yards. And if there's a prop for that, I might take that 50-50 at plus money.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was looking as you were talking, just a couple books with odds on Sky Moore over under 7.5 receiving yards. They're obviously not very high on Sky Moore. He actually runs more often than he does catch passes at this point. I think some Chiefs fans have been a bit disappointed in Moore so far this year, but we'll see. I was kind of hoping I could bet Valdez-Scantling under because he had such a big game last game, but under 2.5 receptions is pretty tough for me to take. I don't think I can do that with the other injuries they have there. So nothing from me on that one. So let's just kind of open this up here. The last little bit we've got for other prop plays that we have. I'll start this one off. I'm going to take, well, I already took Kansas City to take the first time out of the game here. Minus 110. This is minus 115 right now at BetMGM if you like it. Andy Reid's Kansas City teams have called a timeout first in 15 of the 19 games so far this year. He's kind of well known for wasting those timeouts early in halves. Hopefully he'll do it again here. Sirianni has not done very much of that, which you would kind of think that a rookie coach would do more of that than an Andy Reid. So I don't think this is much of a coin flip or a ridiculous bet as you would say in a normal Super Bowl because Reid has done this pretty consistently. So I'm going to take Kansas City to take the first time out in this game. Kiev, why don't you give us another prop bet you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So if this becomes a shootout, this is a little bit of a fail-safe for me with Kansas City. Now, you just did mention Sky Moore rushing. I mean, I hope he doesn't. I know that Hardman had 2 rushing attempts against the Bengals. Sky Moore had 0 rushing attempts against the Bengals, but he did have 1 against Jacksonville, 0 against Denver, 0 against Seattle for the 2 games before. I said under 4.5 rushing yards for a half star. You can just call it a half star or a quarter star. Just depends how you want to break it out. And then I have under 5.5 at minus 170 different rushers to have a carry. Now, here's the thing. You know that McKinnon, Pacheco, and the quarterback Mahomes is going to have their rushes. You know, they might do a one end around or something silly to throw it off. But if they're behind, I'm going to see them passing a little bit more. And I just can't see any more than one receiver getting those attempts, so maybe it will be Sky Moore. But if that happens, you'd have to have something crazy like a snap to Kels to make another rusher. And even with that happening, I'm still under my 5.5 and I have the bet covered because I put double the amount on the 5.5 at minus 170 than I did at minus 4.5. I think both can hit. And if this is a shootout, maybe they're throwing the ball more in the second half and just haven't had time for that play. And so it's almost a hedge against my thoughts on it being a little bit more of a non-receiver centric game. And I like that one personally.
All right, Ron, you got another prop play for us.
Yeah, I've been watching Kansas City in the playoffs like everybody for the last 5 years and watching Andy Reid teams. And the Kansas City defense tries to anticipate the snap count. The number of offside penalties that they have defensively is so noticeable that even the casual fan can see that. They almost even line up offsides at certain times in their formation. So I bet Kansas City penalties over 5 because I think it's a soft number. I think you can't help but call something like that if it happens. If Kiev's right and they start calling timeouts a little more than Philadelphia, do they at some point let the miss on the snap count and maybe have a delay of game penalty? is there going to be a roughing the passer penalty or a holding call or something like that? But I've seen Kansas City tendencies to overreact so many times because of their speed and trying to get there fast that's where I'm going, over 5 penalties.
Fair enough there. I see P. Matt here has commented he's betting it with his alumni heart for Burton or Pacheco to score the first touchdown. I will say Andy Reid does pull out some of these trick plays, and it wouldn't be stunning to see some strange first scorer. I imagine the price has to be kind of ridiculous on Burton to be a touchdown scorer in this game, but that isn't one I've thought about. But that's kind of one of those fun plays. You could put just a little bit on it if it happens to hit. Be a nice fun day there for the Super Bowl. I'm going to give you another play that I like. 3,500. Yeah, nice. Solid. I'm going to give you another play I like, over 2.5 touchdown scores for the Eagles. This is -120. So the way this is if you think the Eagles are going to score several touchdowns in this game, there's so many different people that could score a touchdown for the Eagles. I think the Eagles, more than just about any other team, you think about, it could be Hurts, it could be Sanders, Gainwell, Smith, Brown, Goddard, etc. So if you think the Eagles can score on the Chiefs, I think over 2.5 players to get a touchdown is a good bet in this game. Guys, first, do you have any thought on that? Do you agree that there could be a good chance of 3 touchdown scores for the Eagles here? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree, because you can put in one for Hurts, Goddard, and any of the running backs. Very, very possible. So that basically it kind of shades towards the over in a touchdown scoring game. You do have a higher total at 51. So it plays to that narrative. Yeah, Ryan?
I like it because the running backs can be interchangeable around the goal line. We've even seen Boston Scott score at the goal line. And so it's not necessarily that Sanders is going to carry every time they're at the goal line. So you could get 2 different running backs scoring, which is different than most teams. Therefore, you only need Hurts or another wide receiver, or like you said, their tight end, who was lower priced at the beginning as far as his number of catches. And I think that was one the books might have missed, because I think he will be part of the rotation.
Yeah. Great. And Ron, by the way, the official, I believe, is it Sheffers in this game? He throws the second most flags in any out of all the officials. 6.75 for the home team and 6.75 for the away team. So you got a very flag happy guy that might be backing up the penalties thing.
That would be fun.
I was going to say, I don't know if that's going to be exciting or not, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm going to give out one more real quick, Kyle, that I like, and it plays to the narrative of pass interference, especially with guys like him. First of all, a lot of people like the under 1.5 yards as the shortest touchdown. Now it's all juiced up to -160, -170. So instead, I like the rushing touchdowns over 2.5 total rushing touchdowns in the game at +150. And I took it because of the PI that happens in the end zone. All the rushers on both sides of the ball, both quarterbacks are known to use their legs and get into the end zone. I don't see a lot of, I like the coverage of this team. I like the rushers over 2.5 rushing touchdowns because you're getting the plus money for it. So I think that's very possible. Any PI in the end zone will put it right into potential for one of those right away.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I like that, and I like avoiding that huge juice on the under 1.5. That's a lot of juice there. Might have been a good bet at a better price, certainly, but that's a lot. Ron, do you have anything else that you wanted to add here as far as
on that one, Kiev? That's a nice pull by you, because with the rules these days, you could play rugby at the end of the game and you could walk your quarterback or running back into the lineup. So if you're near the 1 yard line, the percentage play is not to let Russell Wilson throw a pass against New England at the end of the game, but just to rugby yourself into the end zone. So
right.
I kind of like that. The only other stuff that I'll be looking at will be cross-sport props and head-to-head props. And I do have a couple. Like I have Gainwell more rushing yards than McKinnon. So we'll see. You're talking about fail-safe. Well, if Pacheco has a big game, McKinnon's not going to have a big game. So I have a check and balance in terms of that. So I just have this feeling that Gainwell's, if they use him, he's not going to be easy to stop. I really think he's an underrated running back.
All right, guys, I got one more to ask you about here, and then we'll wrap up. I want to know what you guys think of defensive or special teams touchdown in this game. So, yes is plus 300 right now, I see on FanDuel. I think it's interesting the Super Bowl has seen so many of these defensive or special teams touchdowns here in the past. I haven't bet this yet. It's something I'm considering, but 15 of the last 30 Super Bowls have had a defensive touchdown. I think it's almost half of all the Super Bowls have. I don't know. You could argue, is it more pressure? Or is it, I mean, this is the final game no matter what. Both these teams are going to get a lot of heat on the opposing quarterback, you would think. Do you see any value on a yes at plus 300? Ron, you first.
First of all, this is a trade secret I'll give to college bowl game bettors with 3 weeks off before games. If you bet special teams touchdown yes, which is typically around 170 to 200 in a college bowl game, every single bowl game, you win every single year. Just put that in the back of your mind because these guys haven't played for a while. There's all this. Yeah, there's value. That number is a little high. I didn't play it because of Mahomes and Hurts. They don't have a history of pick sixes. But I will say this, even though I think there's value, so I wouldn't go the other way. I will say this whole weird thing about pitchy stuff at the end of the game creates a whole new way of getting that special team or defensive touchdown. And maybe they should outlaw that.
Man, I tell you, it's a horrible feeling having the under, and you start seeing that. If it's oh man, that can be so bad. Kiev, any thoughts on a defensive or special teams touchdown here?
Yeah, I lost on the Jets because of that, by the way. 3.5
Thank
to
you.
5. So I was
you.
right there with you. Contest play and all. No, I don't like it. Plus 300. You said, is it defense or special teams at plus 300?
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought it was just defense, and then special teams was separate. I'm impartial. If 50% of the Super Bowls did it, there's a reason for it. I mean, that's better if you get both of them. Any fumble in the end zone. Your great point about the lateral game. I'm not betting no.
Yeah. It's interesting, and it is fair to say too, it's still a smaller sample size. There's only so many Super Bowls that have happened, so
it won't 300
keep
means 75%. It means 25% or games will do it. If it's true that 25% more than that, then plus 300 is a bargain.
Yes.
And you just said 50% of Super Bowls, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So, guys, this has been a lot of fun. John, Ron, I appreciate you joining us here, and trying to say join, and I say John instead of Ron. But hey, that's all right. We're informal here. So, Ron, thanks for joining us. A lot of fun as always. Can you let the people know where they can find your work?
Yeah. So, well, thanks to you, I put a lot of articles on your own website, and I was on some sort of roll there. So I was saying, well, I got to do it one more time. I got to have another winner. Oh no, but it worked out very well. I'm putting together an NFL exit report series. Kiev, you are going to be a part of it, whether you know it or not. And Kyle did the Cincinnati one, and it was really good. So if you see it on my website, or you see it on the tweets at the top, you'll see that all my exit report interviews, I plan to do one for each team just to get a heads up as to what my process was, what I like looking forward, have some guests on there. Some of them are solo. So if you find me on Twitter, you could see where I'm at, where I go. Chris and I, Las Vegas Chris, will be doing some stuff, I'm sure, in the spring and summer. And my good friend Ted from Sports USA, we're going to do some stuff as well. So find me on Twitter.
All right, sounds good. Ron has some great football thoughts, college and NFL, so check those out. What about you, Kiev?
Yeah, at the Odds Breakers, we're doing deep into basketball now. I always put out content, not just picks. I like to look at it as we're more content oriented. We always do a buy low, sell high every single week for the weekend games and for the following week. Try to point out teams that are injured, possibly, that people don't know about. Try to point out teams that, probably a good fade spot if they've been winning a lot and maybe they're going on the road finally. I put out a good article about that. But of course, we always have the free plays and free information and just great podcasters over there and just a lot of fun at the Odds Breakers. If you want to be a member, sure. We have a promo. We're giving away a free polo to any new member, golf polo. So, check us out at the Odds Breakers. And you get obviously our premium plays, the plays we make. We bet every game we play, we send out at least. So that's how we do it.
For sure. Check out the Odds Breakers as well, everybody. You can find my work at huntersportspicks.com, free picks newsletter there as well. Follow me at Kyle Hunter Picks. Subscribe to our channels on YouTube. We'll keep doing some of these videos coming up. It's going to be not football talk. It'll be basketball talk coming up. And that calendar is not too far away from March either. So there'll be some college basketball talk coming in the future weeks. So look forward to that. Again, Ron, Kiev, thank you. Always a good time here. Everybody, best of luck on all your plays for the Super Bowl this weekend. Thanks for tuning in.